Good evening, everyone. It is Sunday night, and I hope everyone's having a great Memorial Day weekend. I hope everyone's having a good time, staying safe, having fun, spending time with their family. I know I have. We've been having a good time. We started playing Jumanji on the PS4 tonight, so we've been having a little bit of fun. So first off, we're going to talk about our sponsors of the night. We've got Lisa Malone with Melone Management. Do you have a project that you are doing that you need help promoting? You need help getting on shows? You need help getting your stretch goals so you can crank out that project and let somebody else worry about it? Hit up Lisa Malone and she can hook you up. We also have 183 Degree Studios with Alfred Trujillo, Doobie Doobie Doo, and Miss Karen Nicole, AZ Power Girl. Check out their Patreon and Fire Bitch 2, which is still live on Indiegogo in demand. We also have Codex Entertainment LLC with Lily the Demoness Chapter 5 launching this summer. Check out his other titles, Whispers in Necropolis, as well as Ace and Starlet, and the latest project, Nebula Pearl, that just funded in February, and I just got. So we'll be doing a review on Blue Balls Reviews here very shortly. So we also have Naughty Fairies Con. Not Naughty Fairies Con. Naughty Fairies with Miss Wendy Steen Shaner. Check out her projects, Naughty Fairies Stripper Assassins, and the Naughty Fairies Con. The backer kit link is available in the comments. Naughty Fairies 5 just funded on Kickstarter and ended a few days ago. So, or not a few days. Yeah, I guess it's been about a week ago. My brain's slagged today, so we'll roll with it. So we also have Outpost 426 Studios with CB Zane and Michael Shoemaker. Check out Black Rabbit, which will be launching later this year. But Mighty Might #1 is launching June 1st. The link to get notified is in the section up above for the description of the video. And last but not least, we got DPopp Customz. Do you have a print that needs dusted off and made awesome? Check him out. He'll make you a custom built frame with lighting, and it may play to music, however, whatever you want to do, he can hook you up. Give him some crazy ideas. He's always looking for something fun, new to do. So without further ado, we're going to bring out our guest of the night. We have Luke Stone.
What's up, man? Thanks for
What's
having me
going
tonight.
on? Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
just
Sorry about that. My
chilling.
brain's like fried tonight. I'm like,
Uh, it's a
man.
Sunday. I'll tell you what. I've been tired all day, so I suffer from insomnia, which
Oh,
works out
man.
really good when you're trying to draw all the time. So if I'm not sleeping, I'm drawing, right?
Yeah.
And but Sundays are kind of a work day for me. So I get up pretty early on Sundays, about 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then I'm gone all day doing stuff. So yeah, I get it. You get a little tired on a Sunday, but this is a nice night to hang out, to chill out, and have a little fun, talk about comics, and be ready for the holiday tomorrow.
That's right. So you got any big plans for tomorrow? Or are you just going to be drawing and hit lounging around the
Yeah,
house?
just drawing. Yeah, stuff. I got some last. I got some files to send off to the printer. So I want to get some of those finished. Yeah, I'm gonna. Who knows? I don't make some hamburgers. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll see what happens when we get there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when we get there. That's how I am, man. I was like, I tried to plan on getting up at a decent time, and like this morning, I woke up at like 7:30, and I was like, "Hey, hon, we need to get up," and she's like, and then like I don't know what happened. I guess I rolled over and I was just like I was gone, and then I woke up again. It was 9:30. I was like, "Yeah, we need to get up because the kids are up and they're gonna start destroying stuff."
Right? How old are your kids?
So I got a 4-year old. She'll be 5 in October, and I have a 6-year old just freshly 6 in March. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
you cannot leave them alone.
they're toddlers of
Um,
mass destruction.
yeah,
Like
that's funny. Yeah, my
it's
daughter is 18. She just graduated high school, and my son is 11. So they're pretty well self-sustaining at this point. They both know how to feed themselves and sufficiently make a mess. So
oh man.
and sometimes clean it up too. So not
It's
too
like
bad.
part of me wishes to be ready for that point, but then it's like wow, he's already 6. Time has flown by, so I don't want to go by too fast. But I am ready for them to be out of the destructive phase and where
Yeah.
they can like attribute to the household.
Oh yeah. It goes by real fast.
What's up, Smithers?
What's up, man? So yeah, we were looking at, like, today. One of those messages popped up. Like one of the memories on Facebook, and it was my son 8 years ago trying to tell a knock knock joke, and I was like, God, man, I miss that. There's just miss that. It goes by fast.
Yes, it does. So let's talk a little bit about you, man. So I've seen you around running around the indie circuit for a while. I've seen some of your projects flashed up, but I would love to know more about you. I've never really
Sure.
had a chance to sit down and listen, learn about some of your background. So, I kind of want to start off with as far as you drawing. When did you start drawing and all that?
Well, I started drawing when I was about 3 years old, actually. Not good,
Good.
obviously, but
Yeah.
so my mom and dad used to, they were a different sort. So my mom was 43 when she had me. My dad's 13 years younger than my mom, so he was 30. And they liked to go out and hang out at this little place called Breakfast House in Kokomo, Indiana, where I'm originally from. And so they would go out and they would hang out and have coffee and stuff with their friends until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And they had a toddler. So I'm not sure, like what conspired in that choice making, but nonetheless, this ADHD filled little toddler is staying out at this diner with him all night. And in order to occupy me, my mom, the only thing that would keep my attention is my mom would throw me a napkin and a pen, and and I would start to draw, and I would just scribble and scribble, just hours. It would occupy me, and so they continued to do that. Eventually, those scribbles turned into stick figures, and those napkins turned into actual drawing books and pencils and stuff like that. Um, by about the time I was 5 years old, I had graduated from stick figures with block clothes on the outside to actually like putting out and fleshing out kind of characters by 5 years old. And the waitresses and everybody would make a big deal. Everybody would make a big deal when a 5-year-old can do that, right?
Yeah.
But boy, did I still have a long way to go. But but that's kind of how I got started drawing, and I kind of fell in love with it then. Around 5, 6, around 5 years old, I got into He-Man real big.
Oh yeah. Masters of the
Love, yeah.
Universe.
So I'd try to draw He-Man all the time, and then my dad brought home a friend of his at work found out that I liked He-Man, and he thought, well, maybe he'll like these comic books. So he had these comic books laying around, and I got some Spider-Man books, but my favorite book was issue number 4 of the Secret Wars,
Okay.
Mike Zeck and Jim Shooter, right?
Yeah.
And it had the cover of the Hulk. It says beneath 100 million tons of rock, is the Hulk, and he's sitting there saving all these other heroes. And man, that just snapped. It clicked, and I fell in love with comic books. And then I just started tracing every panel of that book until I wore out the book. And then I would look at the pictures because I couldn't trace them anymore and see if I could draw it just by looking at it. And then I was like, okay, can I draw them from memory? And I would try to draw the characters from memory. And that just spiraled out of control. I really wanted to get good at drawing strong people. So I started buying these muscle magazines, right?
Yeah.
And so I got all these muscle magazines trying to draw strong guys and figure that out. And my poor dad, at one point he's like, he kind of looked at me like, should we be worried?
Got all these dude magazines in
Yeah, I
your
got all these
You're
dude
like,
magazines laid out everywhere, and I'm drawing like, no, man, I'm just trying to figure like how to draw these like superheroes and stuff like that. And I said, what he didn't know about was the girl magazines I had hidden.
yeah.
It's like,
Look,
I'm trying
Dad,
to
I
draw
got
them
I
too,
got to
Dad.
get the male anatomy down. Superheroes, the majority of them are male, and of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
and then I got these female magazines for when I get into like the real saucy stuff later on. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So that's kind of how you got involved
Yep.
in comic books. Is
Yep.
you were drawing, and somebody's like, "Hey, you might like comic books." So you brought them
Yep.
over, and you were just hooked from there.
Yeah, it was a love affair, and I'll tell you, comics will break your heart.
They will. They will. So, what was your favorite series outside of number 4 of the Marvel Super Secret Wars?
Definitely the Secret Wars. I was a big fan of the of Flashpoint Paradox. That was really cool. But I'd have to say the one that really got me was the Claremont era X-Men.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
that was, if I were to pick a kind of a defining era of comic books in one particular genre like group that like really formed uh, who I am as a kind of a comic book fan, let alone a
yeah,
creator, it would have to be that bit there. I mean, you think about the cartoon in the '90s, that awesome intro.
Yep.
That's Claremont storytelling right there. That's his work. Those
Yep.
characters. Gambit's my favorite. My second favorite character. The Hulk is my first favorite.
Oh
So it
man,
goes Hulk
Gambit.
and Gambit. Yeah.
Oh, I'm all over Gambit. I mean, I would love to be able to just like, somebody gets out of control, just pick up a receipt and just make it,
And lay down some hurt.
psychokinetic energy and just throw it and watch it blow up.
Yeah, and anything like he can pick up anything and do that.
What's up, Ash?
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
So Gambit's your first or your second favorite, and the Hulk is your first favorite. So
Yep.
why are you so in love with the Hulk? Like, is it because of
It goes back to that
number
first
4?
issue, that number 4, seeing Hulk there, man. There was just something about that. And then as I started reading more about this character, it was that duality of personality, that
Yeah.
that fighting to that struggle to
Of control?
suppress the part of him that is dangerous, but at the same time very powerful. And who wouldn't want to live in that power all the time? But understanding the danger that it caused other people. It was just so like the nuance and layering and that storytelling and that character development. It was just so good, and
Yep.
it just just it for me it still holds up today.
So you got into the comic books. You really liked the Marvel Super Secret Wars, and then you got into the X-Men, the Claremont era. So at what point, as far as being in the comics and doing the drawing since you were 3, and then you got good at 5, and you started tracing and trying to do from memory. What point did you realize that this is what I want to do for a living?
Well, drawing and stuff like that, probably, early on, 11, 12, but it was that age 14, running around in the comic shops, hanging out all day on a Wednesday, and then heading over to my friend's house to, play D&D or something like that, in the evening, especially during the summer. I found some old books. And I found some stuff from Malibu Comics, and I found some stuff from Silverline Comics, and I found some stuff from this company called Arrow Comics back in the day. I don't know if you see that. It's Tales from the Universe #1. This was published in 1985. So
Well, that's awesome. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, and so I found some of this stuff in the shops, just black and white on newsprint kind of stuff.
Oh, those are the best though.
Yeah.
I love black and white.
And it's got that smell, that nice comic book smell, and
Yep.
And it just I started finding stuff like that, and I started realizing that you could make comic books and not follow certain conventions, and that you could do it relatively on your own.
Yeah.
That you could do it the way you wanted to do it, and seeing those guys, it got me thinking maybe I can make my own stuff. Well, I still always wanted to work for like Marvel or DC, mostly Marvel. And so I did some 11x17 drawings, send them off to Marvel. They were gracious enough to send them back and tell me, not quite yet,
It's not
I had
for
a long
us,
way
right?
to go. I had a long way to go still, I had a long way to go but they were very encouraging. But that was a different era of comics when they would do that,
Yeah.
94, stuff like that. And, but so I remember making my first comic book. I didn't know how to do it, so I drew it on regular construction paper, and I folded it in half and stapled it, and I colored it with pastels, thinking that I'll take that and get that photocopied. And it was so bad, man. It was called F-Dome, Future Defenders of Modern Earth. F-Dome. And one of these days, I'm just gonna
Dig it out of
spoof
the
myself
archive?
with it. I don't even know where it's at. I know my mom had it at one point. She saved it. I was trying to throw it away, and she was trying to save it. Mom saved everything, but she passed away a number of years ago. So hopefully it passed on into. It's long gone. Hopefully, but yeah. So it was.
Come on, it couldn't be that bad, man. Everybody
Oh, it
wants to
was
see
bad.
the early work. It could have been bad, but at the time of when you were doing it, it could be really good. For the age that you were.
It probably, but so I've still got like some of these characters in my head. Like I had this one lady called Plasmus, and so Plasmis, so she had like this plasma power. I had a guy named Bodybag who I've actually redesigned, and now he's a villain in my new series. And he's completely different than what he was before. It's like, but I could still draw the old character. I know exactly how he looked, and so there's a couple of characters like that. Those are kind of the two main ones, and but yeah, it was fun. But unfortunately, where I came from, there wasn't a lot of. I think the thing with creative people is we like a response. We like to see that there's someone has some kind of a response to our art or our creation,
Yeah.
and it was difficult to get that kind of like a suitable response from people. When I'd show them, oh, look what I did. It's like, oh, that's nice. Like, hey, look at this story that I wrote. Oh, that's nice. It's like they didn't really think about that. But music was a big deal where we were from. So I learned pretty on if I could sing, and I could play guitar, and I could do those kind of things, I could get an immediate response from emotional response from the creation that I had put forth. And so I started pursuing guitar, and I also learned that guitar gets a lot more girls than comics. And so I started pursuing
Did guitars
it.
did get
It
more
did,
girls?
yes, it did. So
So
times
that's the
they,
hard thing, man.
yeah.
Is the new era. Everybody's into it now.
Like why couldn't that have been the case when I was a teenager, right?
Yeah.
So I remember when my wife found out that I kept it secret from her. We dated for about a year and a half, 2 years before we got married, right?
Yeah.
It was 2 months after we got married when I snuck my long boxes into the house. And she goes, "What are those?" And I go, "It's my book collection." She goes, "What kind of books?" And so she goes over, and because she was really into books, right? And I'm like, "No, no, you wouldn't be interested in any of these." She opens up, she goes, "These are comic books." I go, "Yeah." She goes, "You said they were books." And I said, "Yes, comic books. They're books."
They're
She goes,
still
"That's not
books.
real books." She goes, "That's not real books. How long have you been collecting comic books?" I'm like, "My whole life, like since I was 5."
Man, I've got you beat on that. So this is no joke, and my wife will swear to it. So we met in 2004. We got married in 2012, and about 3 years ago, she found out that I collect comic books.
What? Really?
Yeah.
You really
So
kept that secret?
I kind of got out of the whole scene, and it was funny because I got on Facebook, and that was when people really started doing like live auctions a whole lot on Facebook. About 3 years ago, I started seeing them. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'd sit and watch them for a little bit, and then I got on one feed, and they had a book up there. I was like, oh man, that's an awesome Punisher. I remember I don't have that one, and I need it, so I bought it. And then I was like, wait a minute, maybe I do have it. So I'm downstairs tearing all the stuff out of the closet underneath our stairs here because we have a split level. And my wife's like, what in the hell are you looking for? And I'm like, my comic books. She's like, comic books? And I'm like, yeah. So I pull out these boxes, like box after box after box. I'm like, oh,
Oh
here's the
wow.
Punisher ones. Nope, I don't have that one. She's like, where did these come from? I'm like, we've moved 5 times from apartment to apartment into this house, and you never realized once to look in these boxes that I have
Oh
comic
wow.
books.
See, but I knew that my wife, like, we don't believe in divorce. That's
Yeah.
part of our faith. And so I knew that once she said yes, that it's on.
It's on. Now,
So
I
yeah,
can
she
bring the
was like,
comic
yeah,
books in. You can't
yeah,
say anything about it.
yeah,
Welcome to
yeah,
nerddom.
yeah, yep. But yes, I would do comics off and on, here or there. If I could go back and talk to a younger Luke, I would tell him, look, just stick with the comics. And of course, music really brought me to a lot of different places. It brought me to where I'm at here in Jacksonville, Florida now. I came here to do music and youth at the church that I'm at. Now I'm lead pastoring this place. So, yeah, nerds do rule.
What's up, Alfred?
Yeah, and so it's like, so I think the journey was all worth it because I, I wouldn't be doing comics right now and having this conversation with you were it not for the music side of my life, because that brought me to where I am now, which there wasn't really a band that I could find. I really tried to find musicians to jam with, and it just wasn't happening.
So I didn't mean to derail you earlier. So
No, that's all right.
you found out that um, music was kind of a cooler gig that got people's attention. So how did you kind of get into the music thing?
Well, I kept practicing guitar. I would play a little bit at church, but I formed bands and things like that, and I eventually got pretty good at it. Good enough to where people wanted to pay me to do it, and so that was nice. So I would go and my bands would play. We had a couple different record contracts over the years and things like that, and things really started to progress to where we were going to hit the road full time, and it was getting kind of scary. and I realized how much I was going to miss with my family, and I was like, that just wasn't something I was willing to do. And so I wound up quitting the band and doing ministry, like focusing on on a local ministry, and I wound up going into ministry full time. Actually, Tuesday will be my 10-year anniversary of going into vocational ministry.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's kind of neat to be able to say it's been a full 10 years.
Well, it is really cool, and I respect that because I'm a family man too. With everything that our family goes through, we do things as a unit, and I can totally respect you sitting there going, "Man, this is gonna really down my family time. I don't know if I can do this."
It would have destroyed my family. I probably wouldn't be married if we'd still done it. And to me, like my faith is a to say it's an important part of my life would be a gross understatement. It's the central part of my life.
Yeah.
And so, and my belief is, it's in order to succeed in my faith, I must succeed as a husband and a father.
Yeah.
And so, so it was a pretty, and we were playing Christian music, so it's like my witness would be terrible if I allowed my family to suffer because of this. And
Yep.
so it was a pretty easy choice, and so I went into ministry. I still played bands locally, but we were never pushed for that, that the big thing. But I always still like to play. And then one of the guys so I started going into vocational ministry, and one of the guys that he was doing the music and I was doing the youth at a church, and he wrote and I drew, and so we did a comic book together, and it was pretty nice. So about 10, 11 years ago, we put out a book, and I thought it was good, but I looked at it the other day because I do have it in the box over there, and I looked at it the other day. Nostalgia sometimes will creep up, and it wasn't very good.
So, what was the name of that book?
It was called The Chronicle.
The Chronicle.
Yeah, called The Chronicle. It's about Michael the Archangel, who has to come and stop something, but he gets injured and loses his memory, and he doesn't know who he is, and so someone's trying to help him figure out who he is, and he doesn't have wings. He's like using guns and stuff like that, and it's not a bad concept, but it's not a good comic.
It was a good concept, just poor execution, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So was that a project you guys finished, or was it something that you kind of you worked on for a little while and dabbled with, and then you're like,
we were going to do 4 issues, and I drew one, and I started drawing the second one. I never got anywhere with it because I have a problem with my ADHD. I get like most people get this feeling of accomplishment once they finish something. I don't get that. I actually am the opposite. I get that excitement when I start something. And so I've had to learn how to adapt that part of my personality into an ongoing series. So I had started tons and tons of projects and had finished none of them. Yeah, so I was actually kind of worried that the same would happen when I started an actual series, and so I had to figure out some of those tricks. And so my trick is to hand off the finishing stuff to someone else while I start the next project.
you start the next project.
Yeah. So it's a matter of finding the right partners to get me there.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, man. You got to have a crew that works well and knows how to, put the foot in your butt to get you going.
Yeah, it's like those letters have deadlines, and so sometimes I work with a letterer, sometimes I do my own letters, and so it's I have a colorist that does all the coloring, so then I know if I get the pencils and inks done, someone is going to finish those pages. It's not going to be up to me. I don't like coloring. Coloring is tedious and slow for me, so I don't want to do it. And so somebody else doing those things,
See, man, I'm the exact opposite. I love coloring. I hate doing the line art, because I'll lay the pencils down and then I'll go to ink it, and I'm like, I just want to color this already and be done.
Well, maybe we should partner up. It's like, Russ, here you go.
Here you go, man. Color this.
Done with this crap. I'm ready to
right.
move on to something else. Let me draw the next book. Actually, so I'm finishing up the last bit of the print files are finished. I'm just getting the last, making sure everything's CMYK and set out right, But I've already started. I'm 7 pages into issue 8.
I seen that you were working on it the other day. I was going through your post, pulling stuff for promo for the show tonight, and I was like, oh man, he's already working on number 8.
Yeah, and 9 is written, and 10, 11, 12 are arced out, and I'm ready to script out 10. So yeah, we just got to work out a couple of plot holes. which I thought were really great until the editor goes, Luke, it's not going to work. I'm like, why is it not going to work? She goes, well, because of this thing that you did back here. And I'm like, suck.
So who
That
is your
happens.
editor?
It is a wonderful, wonderful creator, very talented lady named Piper Steed.
Okay.
Yeah, she's quite skilled and does a great job. So I'd worked with another editor, and they were not able to stay with the project, and she's come on board. She came on board for issue 6, and it just the chemistry was right away. Like, we back and forth. She understood kind of where I wanted to go with things. She knew how to make it more readable and believable in some areas where like my pacing was off when it comes to some of the interpersonal stuff. So
Yeah.
she was a big help with that. By the time we got to issue 7, this issue that we're getting ready to close up tomorrow, Tuesday night. We close up Tuesday night. Like we had really started to hit our stride, and now we're going back and doing remasters of issues 1 through 5. And so she's going through, and we've gone through with a fine-tooth comb, and changed art, added things, and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, we're really clicking, even to the point to where we're working on a project together. We're co-creating a project now. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yep.
That's really cool. And that's always the best thing when you're working on something. You find somebody that you sync with right away, and you guys know where you want to go
Mm-hmm.
with things, and they know how to get you where you need to go. And it's like, yeah, this is awesome. So I had to, as far as in between hybrids and the Chronicle, how many other projects have you worked on between there?
Quite a few actually. I started. So when I moved to Florida, I wanted to do, I wanted to work in a band, to find some guys to jam with, and I couldn't. So I took the opportunity to think, well, maybe I could get back into comics. I need something to occupy my time. Things, it wasn't, um, the honeymoon period, in kind of a new job, a new town. Um, there was a lot of leftover time outside of
Yeah.
work, and I needed something to occupy my time. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll do comics again. And it was, and what really kicked me in the rear to do it was a friend of mine, Gary Dale, his brother, Jeremy, who was a little older than us, um, was, he was the talented one. Like we were all kind of talented. We all wanted to draw and do comics and stuff like that. But he put in the hard work to get there and do it, which was really cool. And so he had been making comics, did some work with G.I. Joe. He wrote a series called Skyward that was released through IDW, and just a great creator. And he had been, he had a 5 or 10 year plan, and he was ahead of schedule. And I mean, things were going well for him. And then he got sick. He came back from a con, got some con crud, and got sick. And I remember, getting the news, like hearing, my friend Gary talk about it, seeing his post that his brother had passed away. And man, it hit hard because he wasn't very much older than us, just a couple of years older.
Yeah.
And there was always that 5, 6 years old, 14 years old, that desire to do comic books back then. And I never pursued it. I went with music.
Yeah.
And here I was at this opportunity to do comics. I'm thinking about doing comics, and that seed of that desire was kind of still there. It never went away. It never goes away.
It never goes away. No,
Never
I
goes
get
away.
it.
And I was like, man, I could take my last breath and have not accomplished this at all. And so that really kicked me in the butt. It got a hold of me. It shook me for a bit. And so I started getting real serious about doing comics. I was like, I'm going to do comics. And I had this pitch that I had talked about before I'd moved to Jacksonville with a friend of mine called Worst Day Ever. It was about a guy who worked as a sign boy for a hot dog shop, and he had to go to work dressed as a hot dog during the zombie apocalypse. And so, yeah. And so
That sounds awesome.
it's funny, yeah.
It's like
So
Superbad meets Zombieland.
pretty much, yeah, pretty much. And so it was a concept we worked on. I didn't think of myself as a writer at all. So I always defaulted to somebody else. I had a great guy named Wesley Schomer who scripted it out for 12 issues. And then I realized that originally it was a blog that I had written. And I had like 4 or 5 posts for the blog, and it was, so it kind of lined out this thing. But he wrote a whole epic story, and I did 2 issues. I did an issue, and I started sending it off and shopping it out to companies, and they all said no. You know, zombies are overdone. The art's too stylized. What they meant was the art was not good enough. Whenever someone
Yeah.
tells you the art is too stylized, that means it's not good enough. That's a nice way of telling you you've got more work to do. And I had more work to do. Of course, it's hard to tell a 30-something-year-old guy that, maybe it's a little late to start this. Um, it, and maybe it was, but yeah, I was determined. I was determined. He said, someone said, one of the rejection letters said, we can see that we can see your tenacity, and we know that you're going to make this thing happen. And I was like, darn right you are. I'm starting my own publishing company. So I read everything I could about publishing a comic book and what I needed to do. Started finding all the contacts that I could, and I started a company called Tenacious Comics that was expressly designed to release that book. And along the way, I found some other people that kept getting rejection letters, and we helped each other make our books better so that we can release them.
Yeah.
That worked out pretty well until things got busy at the church. We had some changeover with the pastor. I wound up not being the youth pastor and music pastor anymore, and became the lead pastor. And so there were some things I had to deal with, the transition.
And so
I
that kind of
couldn't
fell to the wayside.
yeah, I couldn't run a company anymore. We handed it over to this other guy who was supposed to keep track of things until I could resume control. And he wound up taking a bunch of money from a Kickstarter. And then I had to pay for all that out of pocket to get that
Oh
fulfilled and all that
man,
kind of
that's
stuff.
the
Yeah,
worst.
it really is. Yeah. So this guy used my, my kind heart against me and stuff. So that I was done with comics, but while we were working on Worst Day Ever with that company, they said, "Hey, we need a superhero book. We didn't have any superhero books." And they were like, "You have that story about the hybrid things, right, with the Nephilim?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got that." I had told them about it. It's a story I had been thinking about and working on for a number of years, but I was going to save it till I had the skill and the ability to do it right, because every
Yeah, you
writer I
want it to
tried to
be
work
your
with,
magnum opus. You're like, this is the story I
yeah,
really care about. I want this to be,
yeah,
on
uh,
par on every way possible.
exactly. And I was never really happy with other writers doing it. Every time I partner with, they'd always want to go some other direction. I'm like, you're screwing it up. Stop it. Like, just stop messing it up.
Just stop.
It's like, just never mind. I'll figure it out myself one day. And
Yeah.
well, it kind of got to that point to where I started to figure it out myself. And so I wrote a script. It was the first script that I'd ever written myself. I drew it and everything. In about a month, I had the artwork done, and then I tried to color it. I didn't like the colors. Found another colorist, Patrick, who's still with me to this day, and we released one issue. And I thought, no one's going to like this except for people who are into the old X-Men stuff, who are into things like Ancient Aliens and all of that kind of like theology nerd stuff. If
Yeah.
they like that, then they'll like this book. And there's not really that many people out there, I didn't think. And so we released the book. It did tremendously well. It did better than Worst Day Ever. And then the company closed. I had a second issue already drawn. And then I was like, I'm done with comics. Screw you, comics. I'm out of here.
I'm done.
I'm
This is like
done.
my fourth attempt, and things just aren't working out. And
Yeah. And then in comes a guy named Joe Spicer at Starcross Comics, and he goes, "Look, I'd like to publish the book with the big guy with the blue energy. We like him, the Nephilim thing. We've got a couple of other stories that have Nephilim and that kind of framework, and I think that this would work well with what we do. It's something I think I could sell." And so I gave him a shot. He re-released issue 1. I had nothing to do with any of that. He did all that work on his own to make sure it got out. I gave him the files for issue 2, and he did all of the work to make sure that got published. And so I'm sitting here now because of Joe and his belief in it. He eventually was like, "Are you ever going to draw number 3?" And I go, "Yeah, I've kind of started, but it's, whatever." He goes, "Well, 1 and 2 are selling really good." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I didn't realize that." And he's like, "Yeah, what's your PayPal? Here's some money." And I'm like, "Hey, that was kind of nice, getting a chunk of money." And I didn't do anything, I
yeah,
hardly did anything. So I went ahead and I drew 3, and because I'd taken about a year and a half off to focus on things at the church,
yeah,
and so I was like, okay, I whipped back in and got issue 3 done, and that went really well. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty nice. And then this fresh momentum, like everyone, they really started moving, and so we did issue 4 and issue 5 as quickly as we could, and did issue 5 at the beginning of last year, so early like March of 2020, we were crowdfunding issue 5, and then I did the trade paperback later in the year in October. Um, and then it got to the point where it's like, okay, we're getting real serious about this. We've got things written, things are moving well. We're not crowdfunding for a couple $100 anymore. We're now crowdfunding for a couple $1,000. And so I kind of got this idea, knowing where things were at with, with COVID and things happening with ministry, that they're like, we're not going to be able to maintain a full-time salary for a pastor.
Yeah.
So I need to find a way to monetize art.
Yeah, kick it up a notch in the art
Yeah,
department to
yeah.
kind of balance
So
out your income.
yeah, so I need to level up, and I need to and I want to be able to level up this particularly. And I knew there were some moves that I needed to do that Starcross and some of those other creators they just weren't quite ready for. And so I made the decision to depart and start working on and try to partner with other people that were kind of in that space to want to do to kind of level up together. And that's when I started Terraform Comics, which failed miserably. Um, you know, uh, sometimes you work with people, and not everyone has the best intentions, and some partners are not good partners. And so that company failed with less than a year an attempt, but I was able to hook up with Arrow Comics, which is very exciting. So you know circle back around 1994, finding the 1985 back issue of Arrow Comics, Tales from the Universe, written by a guy named Randy Zimmerman. I don't know if you can see that in there. Written by a guy named Randy Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Right? During the lockdown, I had started doing a lot of streams. I didn't really do streams before. And so I wound up meeting Varian Grant. And one of the guys he had partnered on his show was Randy Zimmerman. Never put the two never put the two together.
Never put the two
Never
together.
put the two together. It was the same guy. But I did know who Roland Man was. When Silverline started back up, I was pretty excited Silverline started back up because I love their old comics, Cat and Mouse, stuff like that. Couldn't wait to see what they were going to do. I get on a stream, and it's Varian's on there, but Randy's on there, and Roland's on there. And I know Roland Man. And so I'm excited because hey, I'm on a stream with someone that actually does comic books. I kind of feel like I'm leveling up, that whole like people are like, maybe I can start taking myself serious as a creator. And so, but then Roland was like, Randy Zimmerman, Arrow Comics? And I was like, Randy, wait, hold, what? And it started to click, like, holy crap. Like, it's the Arrow, it's that thing that started that, hey, you could probably do this on your own. And so, I was friends with Randy for, a year or so now. And it was when he decided he was going to start up Arrow Comics 4.0. Terraform had ran into its issues. The question was, would you be interested in letting hybrids go over to Arrow? And I said, yeah, I would. I said, but is Arrow interested in having hybrids? And Varian, he was like a little matchmaker, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, well, I happen to know that Randy likes some of the stuff he's seeing. And so, back and forth, we wound up having the conversation. It was just the perfect fit. I was like, yeah, this is great. I can't wait to work with this guy who's got all this kind of knowledge and wisdom in the industry. I mean, literally, he put out a book when I was 5 years old, and he knows more about the industry than most people have. He's forgotten more about the industry than most people will know. And so it's neat to work with him and kind of see how his gears work. Really neat to kind of to pick up on some of those things, and now to be a new era of a company that had some influence in who I am today was kind of neat. It's like how that all works kind of comes around full circle. So
Well, it's really funny. So, one of my big collections is Vampirella, and so I'm in on this feed one day, and there's this Buzz AW in the chat, and we're like talking back and forth about, Vampirella books, and he's like, I've got this book, and I'm like, dude, I've got this book and this book and this book. He's like, oh, that's sweet, and like the whole time I spend like the 45 minutes I'm chatting with this guy, and it never clicks in my head that it's Buzz that did a ton of the Vampirella covers, and we're like sitting there talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I got to." What kicked it off is he's like, "I got this convention exclusive that I did last year for Vampirella," and I was like, "Huh? Like, who are you?" And then I was like, "Buzz." Oh my gosh, it's
oh,
Buzz! So like, I immediately added him as a
the
friend, and
sea
I'm
is
like, whistling.
silent. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, this is who it is. I'm like, I've been talking to this guy for like 45 minutes, and like I have probably every Vampirella cover he's ever done, and they're like some of my favorites. And oh my gosh, I'm like, what, so it was really cool meeting him just in a live chat. Somebody that whose art
Yeah.
I've collected for so long, and
Yeah.
I've never met him, and so like now it's really cool. So like we're friends on Facebook, and
Yeah.
that's one of the great things about social media is you run into people.
It really is, and even better. Like a few months back, again in 2020, I got a chance to meet a guy named John Celestri, which I don't know a lot of names, but I knew John Celestri because I was a huge He-Man fan, and I recognized that name from the TV show. And I was like, "Are you the John Celestri?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's me."
yeah, that's
And
sweet.
I'm like, "How cool is this?" But I've been able to talk because he's entering the world of crowdfunding and stuff. So I've been able to talk to him about that, and it's like it's that's the thing about comics. It's not you know you, it is a business that you can get into. People call it a community. I don't know that it's so much a community. There are pockets of community in it. But
Yeah,
it's definitely an industry. But it's an industry that allows you to work with some of your old heroes, like those people that really influenced you. And vice versa. There's going to be people that my work today influences someone that, maybe, 5, 6, 10 years down the road, I'm going to be able to work with these people and be
and
able
they're
to
gonna be like,
see.
"Man, Luke, you have no idea how much hybrids influenced me," or
Yeah.
and you're gonna be
Yeah.
like, "Wow, I never thought I'd see this day."
Yeah, it's just but it's cyclical like that, and it's neat to be a part of to kind of be a part of the process with people, and
Yeah, it
you
was
know,
funny. So speaking of John Celestri, so like I was super excited. So Meredith had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to be on for Zit on Nanite Titan?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll be on the show." She's like, "Well, John Celestri is going to be on there." I'm like, "The John Celestri?" She's like, "Yeah, the John Celestri." And so like I texted Grant Lankard. I'm like, "Hey man," I'm like, "John Celestri is going to be on, and we're going to get the chance to be on with John Celestri." He's like, "Who's John Celestri?" I'm like, "What?
what's wrong with you?
What?"
Do you know nothing?
Who's John
Yeah.
Celestri? What? Why are we
Now,
even
now
friends?
the truth is, like, I hardly recognize names at all. So, like,
Yeah,
or even faces. So, I have like that built in, like, I never fanboy thing.
yeah.
But I respect people's work, and so when I recognize those names of the work that I respect,
Well, what I was excited
I'm like,
about was,
wow,
getting a
yeah,
chance to talk to him about all of his animation, and so now, he did Bloodwing
uh huh,
Angel, and so I'm
yes,
excited to get that.
hmm
I backed issue one, so I'm really excited to get that and check it out. But I was really excited to get to talk to him about animation and all the,
yeah.
doing the Star Wars holiday
Yeah.
special,
Oh
the
yeah,
Boba Fett thing.
I think he probably has to answer the same questions from all of us
All of
who
us.
grew up watching those things because I want to know. It's like,
Yeah.
so how did you do it? Like, how were you able to put out cartoons so fast?
And
Because it was
man, he's
like,
he's been doing live streams and doing like showing people how to draw emotions and
yeah,
uh you know uh, expressions. That's what I'm
yeah,
looking for. Facial expressions. And I'm like, this dude just like cranking out a whole character in like 3 seconds. And I'm
yeah,
like, dude, that would have taken me like 2.5 hours to do that. And he's
yeah,
already
just
on
like
the
that.
next page and he's got half of another guy, fleshed out before I can
Right?
even get
Yeah,
something typed.
it's you can tell it's like, wow, I've like that is the hand of someone that's skilled that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I've got to get there, and it's like, so it doesn't matter how good you get. You're like, I need to get to the point to where I'm that proficient with my skill
Yep.
to do this. And so that, I love surrounding myself with these kind of people, and being able to interact with these kind of people.
Yeah, because they
The
push you to do better. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't ever
um,
want to get complacent with your work and be like,
yeah,
"Oh, I think what I do is good," because then you got these people around you that are like, "Oh, I did 35 sheets today. What did you do?"
oh
Like,
yeah,
"Oh, I got a half a page
yeah.
done."
So yeah, my goal is 7 to 9 pages a week
Yeah.
on top of working full time. I'm like, I needed to be able to draw 7 to 9 pages a week, and last week I did 7. Um, so this week's goal 9. I'm like, can I get 9 pages in? Uh, which means I would finish up this book in 3 weeks if I kept that pace, which is insane. Most people are like, that's crazy, but Jack Kirby did 9 pages a day, so that's my target.
Yeah.
Like he could do 9 pages a day. I'm failing, you know.
And which, when you're talking about finishing a book, you're talking about issue 8, right? Because issue
Issue 8, yeah.
seven's already completely
Oh
done.
yeah, it's done. It's in the can. It's ready to
It's in
go.
the bag. Yep.
Yeah, it's in the folder, just ready to. I mean, obviously they're closed tomorrow, so they'll probably start uh, after Tuesday. They'll probably get the proofs for me on Tuesday, and by the end of day Tuesday, I'll know how many copies I need. I'll have a rough idea of how many copies I need come Tuesday morning, and then so we'll go ahead and get the print run started. Um, for that, and get those, so we can get those shipped as quickly as we possibly can. So
And so I don't really know any of the story behind hybrids. I have seen it. If you kind of give me like the elevator pitch of what hybrids is about for anybody that's watching or that goes
well,
back and
I
watch
I
this.
kind of did already in our brief conversation about this,
Yeah.
which is good because it's organic, right? So I love ancient aliens and that kind of stuff, that folklore and legend and myth. Those things really interest me. And there's a part of me that kind of wants them all to be real.
Yeah.
Whether it be cryptozoology, whether it be uh, 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 ancient aliens, Greek gods, or even Nephilim, that are talked about in most of the major world religions, where it talks about angels coming and seeing the daughters of men and liking them, and procreating and having these angel human hybrids called the Nephilim. All of that stuff, I really want that to be real. And so that was kind of this core interest for me. But I really loved the Claremont era X-Men and how it was character driven plots, and it was fast paced action, and you learned a lot about the characters throughout all of that kind of pacing. There wasn't these long, like 4 or 5 page issues, like episodes where you had they're sitting down at a table talking back and forth. There was no talking heads. It was always something that was moving forward and progressive about it, and I just loved it. And so I decided to make a book like that. And so we take the idea of the Nephilim, who predate the Greek gods by about 1,500 years, and the Greek gods are actually just embellishments of these real life Nephilim. And these Nephilim continue to have babies, and what happens is the human side of that DNA, it just waters down all of this fantastical angelic stuff until one day, out of nowhere, that part of the DNA just starts to wake up again, and people start developing these godlike abilities overnight. And someone starts coming around and abducting all of these newly powered people. And what we do is we follow a group of people trying to figure out who, where, and why. They're trying to put all the pieces together, and we find that this corporation is at the center of all of this drama, and it just and then we just ramp it up from one arc to the next, the killing field, where well, that's not ominous at all, is it? So it's that is the but that core bit. It's like it's ancient aliens, it's folklore, legend, and myth wrapped up in a Claremont era X-Men. I've had some really cool people say some amazing things. Like I was on a stream the other day with Adam Lawson, who is doing a book called The Kill Journal, which is amazing. He's in TV, he's in radio, he's in games. That dude is everywhere. And he had read the first trade paperback, which is the first 5 issues compiled. And he goes, "Man, it's the X-Men I wanted to read." And I was like, I'm quoting you. And I'm going to get some mileage on that quote as well. But because that's the kind of stuff you like to hear, and I've heard of,
Yeah.
it's the buzz is going around. People was like, "Hey, this is the best superhero team book in indie comics," and I'm like,
Well, and the
"I
best
love
part
it."
is you were big into X Men. You wanted to, do stories like Claremont, and then for
Mhm.
somebody that doesn't know you to be like, "This is the X Men I wanted to read," and
Right, like
and
it
you're
was.
like, "Wow, you picked up on what I was trying to do."
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you caught it. You caught it. And obviously, want to throw in a little extra originality into there. It's
Yeah,
not just a retelling of those stories.
yeah,
There's kind of the new element to it. And but the core base of people having superpowers, it's something that conceivably, if you're a believer in conspiracy theories, that could exist. I create some of my own conspiracy theories, and then I inject some of the world's already known conspiracy theories into this world in this realm. So it makes for a fun ride. It really does.
live in the chaos.
Yeah.
So, how did that lead up to you? I see on issue 7 that you have the RPG game now.
Well, I got to go back to 14-year-old Luke sitting in the comic book shop on a Wednesday reading his favorite X-Men, or standing or making sure I get a first printing of the Gambit series, that Gambit short miniseries they did.
Yeah,
Blew my mind. I loved it. I loved it. And so I was like, getting those characters and stuff like that and buying those action figures and then going and playing a role playing game with my friends. And one of the things I always wanted, I was like, would it be great if you could play the X-Men or the Avengers or some of this other stuff as a role playing game? Wouldn't that be awesome if you could do that? And like you can create your own characters and fight some of these bad guys? Wouldn't that be amazing? And everyone said, yeah, it would be. But yet no one did it.
yep.
And so one of my goals was at age 14, I told my friends, I said, I want a multi-issue, like I want a superhero, I want a book like this, a series of comic books, but I want to have a role-playing game where people can dive into the action with me and they can play in the world that's in my head. And so we did it. Worked with a guy named Nick Tockard I met him over the pandemic. And so while everybody else was catching up on the Tiger King and all that good stuff, and finding out what Joe Exotic was doing, we were making a role playing game, and
So
so
Nick Tockard, is that the one with the fencing guild?
yes, that's him.
Okay.
Yep. So he's a genius when it comes to game mechanics, and so he created a wonderful D6/D20. It's a base two is what he calls it because of the stats. It's a base two system that he created for this world, so that it's easy to play. It's not rules heavy. It's mostly story driven, and he just knocked it out of the park. Last night we actually live played it on someone's channel, so we had people be the characters, and it took about 3.5 hours for us to get through it, which is pretty decent for a quick play.
Yeah.
That's a nice fun session to have with your friends. And he role played that, and he was the GM. I was the God Complex commentator. And then we had everybody else kind of playing. It was a good time. It was a lot of fun. And so we were able to kind of have an exhibition of what that game is like for people and
That's
have a good
awesome.
time with it. Yeah. And it's one of the things, so kind of at the end, uh, we bring in the heroes from the comics. And as he's describing this scenario and this scene as it plays out, one of the people afterwards said, like, when he said that, I started getting goose pimples because I was like, is that him? Is that Trash Man? Is it? And then when he said, oh, this green mist turns into a beautiful form of a woman, and she's like, it's chlorine, so she's like excited, and I'm like, that's exactly the feeling that I got when I first did the playthrough with him, and I'm like, I know that these characters, like who they are, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but they're my babies, and I'm excited about it, but to have other people get excited about it too, it's a whole other level.
It
It
is.
just transcends into, just to awesomeness.
Oh, definitely, man.
Yeah.
Without the fans, why would we do what we do, right? When other people, it clicks
Yeah.
with them and you see the joy they're having, you're like,
Yeah.
I accomplished what I wanted to do. It's not about money. It's not about, being the richest person on earth. It's about being rich by enlightening others, giving them happiness, bringing
Yeah.
them joy, and seeing, them have a good time and want
Yep.
more out of these
Yep.
characters. One of the other things that I noticed too, I'm going to bring it up here. Maybe my mouse, I think, just died. Oh no, it's got a little more life in here. It just flashed right at me. I was like, oh no. Let's see here. I'm gonna bring this up. I don't know how much you can say about it, but it was something that I wanted to. I didn't want to kind of gloss over it. I'm gonna bring it up on screen here.
I'll say
So,
as much and probably more than I should. Let's just say that.
hey,
Yeah.
that works, man. You heard
Yeah.
it here first. Maybe
All
it's
right.
gonna
Yeah.
come up here. Come on, you can do it. What is going on? I share screened it. What happened here? It's showing that it's share screening on the computer, but it's not. Let me try that again. All right, remove, add to stream. There
There
we
it
go.
goes. Yeah.
There we go. It just had a little glitch in there. So I seen this at the very end of the Indiegogo, which everyone that's watching, anybody that goes back and watch that, I popped a link for that into
Yeah.
the comments there. So what is this about? We got a Rift Riders preview by Piper Steed and Luke Stone. So this
Mm-hmm.
must be the project you were talking to me about earlier, and I noticed that it's drawn by Martha Schwartz with Seed
Yeah.
Seekers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is a test run of this story. It is a concept that I had, and I hooked up with Martha Schwartz on it because we were going to put it in a kind of an anthology book, and I was looking for an artist to kind of help me do it because I didn't have time. I just I had this story that I was writing, and then so I knew that I wanted Piper to have some say with kind of the editing with that story. But I had this idea for these Rift Riders that it's kind of a Peter Pan meets Doctor Who, if you will. And it's in all ages, and I wanted it to be nice and whimsical, but yet kind of exciting. Something that your preteens, boys and girls, would both get into. And when I talked to Piper, she goes, I said, "Would you want to help write it?" And she goes, "Yeah, but I actually have I have an idea that's very similar." So we decided just to blend those two together and become co-creators. And she's the primary writer for that book, and I'm kind of the secondary writer. And then so we wrote that, and Martha did the first 6 pages for it. And so that is going to get its first look in Hybrids issue 1 remaster, which is
Okay.
available through the campaign in limited quantity, or once we go to retail in August, you'll be able to get it in that version too. So we're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen with that series yet, but that is one that we're trying to develop. We've got some interest in people and someone that wants to finance that a bit, so we're pretty excited about that. But they're going to have a few thing. Obviously, whenever someone's like, "Hey, I've got a wallet that I want to use on this," they have a few things to say about it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of working out some of those details and seeing where that
It's I
might
want to
go.
fund this, but we need to change a few things here and there.
There's always
So
a
I
but,
I
yeah.
get a little bit of a kind of a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe by looking at some of the characters. And,
Yeah, there is that in there as well. So I think some of the team dynamic you're going to find that. Um, but yeah, it's the story is really it's Doctor Who meets Peter Pan. It's kind
okay,
of a if we're really going to it's the basic part, the basic idea is that these people are together because their timelines have ended, and so there's no home for them anymore. They've survived the extinguishing of their timeline, and so they all find a home on this ship, which kind of becomes their Neverland, and they're able to pop in and out of different time and space and dimensions, and it becomes they're just hanging out, until one day this terrible thing happens, and rather than ignore it, they decide to investigate, which brings us into the whole first issue. It's going to be amazing.
it looks awesome. It looks like a lot of
Yeah,
fun. So I'm kind of excited about that. I seen that.
yeah,
So I was like, I gotta bring that up when I talked to Luke about it. I was like, I didn't just gloss over it. I
yeah,
read all the way to the end, and I seen that. I was like, yep, that's something I gotta bring
yeah,
up. This is
yeah.
good. I mean, you got hybrids, which is something you're really
Uh-huh.
passionate about. You put it on the back burner because you weren't sure about, you wanted to hone your skills and get to a level that you're like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna
Yeah,
do this the right, and it's gonna be in its full glory because I really believe in this story, and it's something that you're really passionate about. in real life. You're like, man, if this was real, this would be so awesome. And it's like it's not real at this point, so I'm going to make it real in a
Yeah.
story. But it's really cool to see that you got other stuff in the pipeline that you're kind of starting to get the wheels moving on, and so that's
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, and that's just one of them. I've got two other stories. I've got one of the ones that I've done a test on for 6 pages. And so I'm doing a test of a number of different stories with a kind of the intro part of the first issues to kind
Yeah,
of see where they go. One, it's called The Runner. It's about a guy named Jerome Rivers, who is well. There's a secret about him. I don't want to let loose for when
yeah.
people read it, but he's a free runner, like he does parkour, and it's set about 6 months in our future. Um, but in this future, things aren't improving. Things continue to escalate out of control, and so we use that as a premise for kind of where this story goes. Pretty exciting. I'm very very excited about this book. I like it a lot. And then I'm working on another one called Juror 13. I've tried to partner with another writer. They've come up with some ideas, but we're still kind of in the conceptual stage of that. I know where I want it to go, and it's running into unfortunately, another hybrid situation where it's like I'm working with some great talent, but they all have another idea where they want to go, and there's still kind of that thing in my head that's just not quite there for me yet.
No, no, stop. Right?
Yeah, it's like timeout. Even with Runner, like the writer who I partnered with, I did a work for hire, paid him to write the first 5 pages of Runner. You come back and like, hey, this is what I'm thinking for the next part, and I'm like, no, no, no. So I'm like trying to give some direction, and that I'm pretty I'm kind of like a Moffat, Stephen Moffat in that sense, or a Jim Shooter in the fact that I know exactly where I want this thing to go, and don't deviate from the big points.
Yeah,
Fill
you
in
don't
the
want it to
little
go
rocks.
off the
Yeah,
rails.
yeah, but I know exactly where my end is. I see the end, and so I'm trying to get there. And but we're testing these out, these to
Well,
see
yeah,
where they
no, I
go.
get it, man. It's really cool because you're throwing ideas at the wall, kind of seeing what sticks. And the thing is that even if it doesn't stick now, in the future, when somebody's picking up issues of this at the comic shop, and they're like, "Oh, this looks cool," and then you start
Yeah,
having like hundreds of people saying, "Hey, what happened to the runner?" or "Hey, what
yeah,
happened to Rift Riders?" Then you'd be like, "Okay, maybe it's time to reevaluate this story
yeah,
because it's starting to pick up traction." So
yeah,
what doesn't stick now could stick later, or you could really hit a gold mine with something
yeah,
where people are like, "Hey, I really like this idea. Let's run with it."
yeah.
No pun
It,
intended.
yeah, you should run with it. Yeah, I've got another story called Forgotten Country, which is going to be neat. But some of these stories actually tie into the hybrid universe too, which is neat. So they have little Easter eggs in there, and like you find out later that some of this stuff is tied in, like it's connected. So yeah, there's all these things that I want to do, and so that's where the Loopstone Studios comes in. I was trying to do it with Terraform Comics, didn't work out so well, but Loopstone Studios I can have the full reins of, and we're gonna keep creating different IPs and testing them out and see what works. But Rift Riders is one I'm particularly excited about. I think it is going to go well. Trying to figure out those final details, some of those other details to it, to move forward with production. I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be a big, when we do it, it'll be a big one. We're going to think, probably 6 issues minimum, 12 maximum, so both what we want to do. So it's yeah,
Well,
on
I mean,
top
the
of
nice thing is, I mean, that's the thing with books. I love hearing people saying they want to keep it 6, 12 issues, keep it short and sweet. Because we all know, the big two. It's like, hey, we're going to start with number one for the 573rd time, and we're going to do as many issues as we can milk out of the storyline. And,
yeah,
people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, okay, we're going to start this story. We're at issue one, and we're probably going to run 12 issues. So they know there's a start and an end. It's not something that
right,
you're
right,
just like, they're gonna like a Dragon Ball Z. You have to watch 35 episodes to see the the final
yeah,
outcome of the fight.
yeah. It's odd because hybrids The arc that I'm getting ready to write, the Lifeline arc, is the
Yeah.
arc that I wanted to tell. It was originally called the Necromancer, but part of that storyline got moved um, into the Killing Field, and so it's called Lifeline. But that's the storyline that I wanted to tell. Those 3 issues, and unfortunately, no one would care about those 3 issues without the setup.
Yeah.
So that's why I started Trash Day, introduce us to the story, the Killing Field, to set up what's going to happen in Lifeline to tell that story. So there is a beginning, middle, and end to the
Exactly.
story, but I'm also I'm also writing Old Dominion, which is another storyline that follows this one. So it's like this is kind of like what happens after, and there's other things that happen. Because with any good book, you have to be able to continue on. And so we're going to continue with
Yeah.
legacy issues. Consequences that happen in this world, they stay. Like that, of course, there's always the ability to bring, there's always that thought, well, can you bring people back? But do we bring people back? That's my question. You know, uh, there isn't always, there can be an intent to bring people back, but it has to be part of the story. Otherwise, if someone dies, they're dead. You know, uh, we just, we put out a Craigslist ad and we hire a new villain. Or we hire, or we pick up a new hero to fill in their split in their space. Dead is dead. So yeah, that's kind of the way that we're gonna go. But each one of those stories will have beginning, middle, and end. Even in the arcs that are telling this larger story, the with the exception um, of really book 9 to 10. So the Killing Field Part 4 to Lifeline Part 1. Um, it's a very short pause in between those, but it's like this is the story. This is what happens here, and then there's a pause, and this is what happens here. And so though it continues, um, Lifeline is probably going to be the only book like where you can jump right in with the Killing Field and be right into it. I'm going to write it in such a way where you could jump in on issue 10 and be okay still. But there's going to be a few things that like, well, why is this so important? Like again, like you could read that story by itself, but would anyone care without knowing the
The
backstory? And that's
backstory.
yeah,
Exactly.
so
No,
yeah,
yeah.
which is why I made those other books.
Well, I mean, it's just like the Hobbit with the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Hmm.
Like, you know, if you wouldn't read the Hobbit, you really don't understand, the background of the ring and all
Yeah.
that. And so, I mean, I get it. It's just like the book that I just did. Xenon Anarchite and the Fall Before the Rise. It's like, I did. It's kind of like, there's not a lot of action in the beginning, but you have to set up the premise for the story. You have to give some backstory before you can just jump in and have all these characters that you're like, why is this guy so important?
Oh yeah.
Or why is he so upset that this guy got off? And throughout the story, and then so I totally get it. You got to have the prequel to set up to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like people say, the first series is good, the second series is always better,
Hmm.
or the best, and then the third series or whatever. You got the beginning, the middle, the end. The beginning sets it up. The middle is the meat and the potatoes, and then the end just ties up all the loose ends and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, my computer errored out on me. An error has occurred. Please try again.
Oh,
Gotta love,
yeah.
gotta love technology,
Technology.
man.
Yeah.
It's the greatest. But man, it's really awesome. It was really exciting to sit down and talk to you. Find out what your inspirations were. I love, kind of the story. It is kind of like my story, and I think the story of all creatives. You have this project that you want to work on, and you're like, nah, screw comics or screw writing or screw
Yeah.
art, and you go off and you try to do something else, but your calling always pulls you back, and it's like here you are. You had something, then you quit, and then you went
Yeah.
back into it, and you're like, all right, I'm done this time. And then here you are again, but now you're killing it. And I love to
Yeah.
see the passion that you're not giving up on it, and that you push through and you made it this far. And now you've got issue 8 you're working on for hybrids. Issue
Yeah.
7 has 2 days left to go on it on Indiegogo. Is
We've
there
got
going to
over
be an in
100
demand?
backers, which is great. I mean, whenever I think that's kind of a caveat, really. When you get more than 100 people that are supportive of your project, it's just great.
Wow. I don't know what happened, man. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear
Yeah, I
me?
can see you just fine. Like literally, my it just force quit, and the other one is still there. So
Still there.
let's
You're still
get
there.
ready. Yeah, like literally, I'm like you're like going said something about backers, and then like it closed out, and I seen my home screen. I'm like,
Oh no.
oh
And
no!
panic
I'm like,
ensued,
I'm
right?
like, hold on, I'll be right back. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
It
Well,
did
you know,
this the other
I
day.
do these enough that I can, you know, I can
Yeah, you could be
manage it
like,
for a
oh, okay,
second.
he'll be back. I don't know what it is. Like I've never had this happen ever. And Tuesday show, no, Friday show that I did a pop up show with Jonathan. Friday show was the first time it ever happened. I was like, oh, it was a
Mm.
fluke, but now it's done it again. So, oh boy,
It's not a fluke.
it's not a fluke.
It's now it's a problem.
Well, and that's the
uh,
thing, it's got to be something to do with Streamyard. Um,
yeah.
Before it was the
StreamYard has
Bluetooth
troubles.
headsets. The Bluetooth headsets wouldn't link, so thus I'm using a wired
Yeah.
headset because I'm like, whatever. I'm not gonna because people I can hear them, but nobody can hear me. It's something to do
Yeah.
with the
I got
mic.
so
So
tired of using the earbuds because they start to hurt after a while.
yep,
You know, because you're on these streams for a long time. So I got these comfortable headphones.
yeah, I'm
And
gonna
as you
have to
can
go get
see,
me some.
they're nice and camouflage, so you can't even see them.
You can't see me.
Yeah, you don't even know they're there.
So, anyways, I apologize for that.
Yeah, it's no problem.
So you're 133% of your goal now. Are you gonna
Yep.
have an Indiegogo like after campaign on
Oh,
demand?
the
Sorry.
in demand thing. I'm okay. So we're just doing a 28-day campaign, and we're not going to extend it. We will do when we go in demand. I will shut everything off that has a special cover. I will leave up the game and the basics. I will take out the digital. I don't think I'll continue to do digital. The remaster will not be there. The black cover won't be there. I'll leave the Killing Field Part 1 and 2 available. And so a few of these things will remain on the in demand
Okay, so
for
basically
about
the,
two
the
weeks.
so basically you'll have all the exclusives and stuff to this campaign will be taken off. You'll have the
Yep.
basic stuff for people to still get for 2 weeks, and then that'll be gone as
Yep.
well.
Yep. And yeah, and if you back after, you don't get any of the stretch goals. So like during the in demand, nobody gets any stretch goals. You just get the tier that you're doing. So, and we're only going to do that. We're only going to have it open for probably 2 weeks. As soon as all of the product gets here, the patches, the stickers, and everything, as soon as everything shows up, and I start packing boxes, I'm turning off in demand.
I got you.
Yeah, so that we can focus on getting the next campaign started.
So there you go, everybody. All the cool stuff. And the I'm sure the action figure won't be available anymore either, or is it
No,
already gone?
we've got 7 left.
So there you go. If you want to get in on the Trash Man action figure or
Yep.
any of the other cool, exclusives, and you want the stretch goal stuff. Oh, you've even got one. Oh, I got to see this. Hold on. Let's see. Solo, yeah. Oh, that's
All right.
awesome.
So the back will be signed and numbered. I haven't signed and numbered this yet because I don't know. I think I'm going to print all 20 because even though we're still 7 out. But here's the cool thing about this: the packaging has a resealable clamshell,
Yep. That's
so
what I
that
was going
you
to say.
can
I
so that
was
you can
getting
take
ready to
him
say
out
if nobody
and
knows,
play.
these action figures are awesome because the package is resealable. So you can actually get it out
Yeah,
and play with it and put it back and not have to
yeah.
worry about damaging it.
They articulate at the shoulders, and the head can turn, and the waist can turn. So that's about all the articulation you get out of them. Is those 4 spots.
So no leg articulation.
No leg articulation. Unfortunately, that would increase the cost of these tremendously.
Oh no, I get it. Well, I mean, it's kind of nice that the legs don't articulate because then
Yeah.
it should always stand up on its own.
It does, yeah. You can't see it, but he does stand up.
That's the worst thing about getting the ones with the leg articulation. It's like no matter how well you articulate the legs for them to stand, they
Yeah.
still fall over.
Yeah, but yeah. So we're pretty excited about that. It's something that I haven't done before, and it's really neat to be able to do it. I am looking into buying my own 3D printer and doing my own statues and miniatures and stuff, just because I realize how much money I'm going to wind up spending down the road on getting these things done. It's like, oh, if I could figure out how to do my miniatures myself, I could probably. Oh, that's awesome. Did you do that one?
No, I took some of the files for. Well, it's actually this file right here. I took
Mm.
that file. Wendy Steen Shaner that did this piece here for the first book. Um, she rendered the file into the STL file is what you have to render it into, and I had Mark Tant with Mark Tant's 3D printing. This fellow here hooked
Mm.
me up. I was like, hey man, I'm like, we got to get this printed. So I mean, it wasn't too expensive. I think it was like $30 to get this printed. So what I'm going to try doing is I'm going to do some of the fill-ins and file it down, smooth it out, do some clay filling on it, and I'm going to get buy one of those resin mold kits. I'm going to
Oh,
resin
okay.
mold it and then try making a resin cast of this. And if I can do that, I'm going to do like a limited run of 10 of those, and I think that would be pretty cool.
That
And
would
then
be
he's got
cool.
the hole in his hand too, so I can do like cast some weapons and like have
Oh,
like three
neat.
or four weapons that can come with them that you can swap out. And
Yeah.
he stands up too. I was really surprised, and the detail on the boots is just amazing. Like, look at
Oh,
that.
wow. That is awesome.
So yeah, I was super excited when I got this, and I was like, man, I hope it doesn't get broke in the mail. But man,
Right.
that's the coolest part of seeing your character, get turned
Yeah.
into a statue, and
Yeah.
you're just like, man, or even an action figure. That's really
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. The action figure is kind of neat. I eventually want to do a larger, like more articulated action figure. The next campaign I plan on doing a statue, kind of like that, a 6-inch statue of chlorine, um, and maybe Trash Man, maybe the both of them together. Yeah, that's my plan anyway. But when we release the full game manual, I need to have miniatures that people can paint. So I've been told it's like you need to have miniatures for that full game manual. I'm like, okay, we're gonna work on it.
Okay, yeah, we got to get
Yeah,
that. We got to get that
yeah,
set up for everybody.
yeah,
All right, well, cool, man. It was really great having you on tonight. I know you probably got stuff to do and get back to family and all that, but it was really awesome getting to talk to you. I loved hearing about your inspirations and your struggles in comics and the fact that you never gave up because that's what the show's all about. And it's great. Somebody out there may go back and watch this and need to hear that and it inspires them to keep doing what they're doing. So don't give up on your
yeah.
dreams,
Well,
people.
hopefully it does. Thank you for that, and it's been fun. Been fun chatting. I know it's the first time we've actually met, so it's really nice. Yeah,
Yeah, first time officially. I've watched some
yeah.
of the streams you've been on and stuff, but I always like come in and trash talk some of the people in the comments because it's what I do. We have a good time. They'll be like, "Oh man, Russ is here.
I
He's gonna
love it
stir
when
up
people
trouble."
trash talk in the comments. There's a guy named what is it, Mo Biggs, that does some of the streams I'm on. He'll pop in, and I learned early on. Like at first, I was like, man, that guy's savage.
Yeah,
Like
what a
he's just
dick!
ripping people.
Look at
Yeah,
this
and then I
guy.
realized that. Then I realized like, oh, this isn't a good stream, and you're not a good guest unless you get razzed by this guy.
Yeah, that's how I am, man. Steph Wilson pops in, and I'll get in on
Yeah.
Steph Wilson, Philip Russert. A lot of these
Oh
guys,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just go on and I'll razz them for a little while, and we have fun. We rip on each other, we post on each other's pages, and
Oh yeah,
that's the
yeah,
best part. Having friends in comics and just just messing with each other all day because you could have the worst day and you get on Facebook and you're like, oh my gosh, what did they post on my page? And then you
right,
just start
yeah,
cracking up, and like immediately you start like you quit worrying about what's on your mind. You're like, I'm gonna get them back. What am I gonna do to get them back? And so you start working
yeah,
on that. So we have fun, and it's a good time. And, I'm sure there's people that are like, man, this Russell guy is a huge dick, and everybody's like, no, no, no. This if he doesn't come in and razz, we worry about what happened to him.
yeah.
So cool, man. I'm gonna give you the full screen, give you one last chance
Sure,
to tell everyone who you are, where they can find you, and all that good stuff. And I'm gonna
sure.
pop the link back in.
All right. Yeah, if you just head on over to lukestonestudios.com, that's Luke Stone Studios with an S.com. Over there, you're going to be able to find links to the Indiegogo. You're going to be able to find links to my mailing list. That's the best way to find out, keep up to date with what's going on. We got a new book coming out about every month and a half. We're going to have some big news about the Hybrids issue 1 that's going to be available through Arrow Comics coming out in August to the direct market. Want to make sure we get those list of stores and where you're going to be able to find those things at through there. So make sure you sign up for the mailing list. You can also find my Indiegogo. I said that already. My Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook. You can find some of the music that I've done with a group of guys that I did meet down here in Florida, called Dave Hates It. We've got some music that's up there so you can hear it. And if that wasn't enough, you get to see some of my photography. that I've done. And so yeah, lukestonestudios.com. That's kind of the place to visit and the place to get connected. I also just encourage you, let's keep comics fun, enjoy ourselves, and try to leave the woodpile a little bit higher than we found it.
That's correct. That's the way we want to leave it. We want to leave it a little higher. We don't want to knock it down a few notches.
Yeah.
So cool, man. It was really great to have you on. Thanks so much for being on. Thanks so much for hanging out and chatting and talking about your project.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being on here. I'm going to kick you to the green room. If you want to hang out for a minute, I'll be right back.
Yep.
Have a good night, bud.
You too.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. That's Luke Stone with Luke Stone Studios. Go check out his stuff. Go check out The Killing Fields Part 2, which is Hybrids number 7. Pop the link in there for you guys to follow. And also, there's also LukeStoneStudios.com, which will take you to the Indiegogo. For those of you that just joined or anybody that didn't hear, it's got 2 more days left. So if you want to get in on the stretch goals, oh, yeah, look at you, Steph Wilson, coming in at the last minute. Jeez, just like you. That's it. I'm going to have to tell Carrie to take away your crawlers in the morning. So you guys heard it there. You got 2 days left to back it. If you want to get in on the stretch goals or any of the goodies that come with it, once this campaign ends after that, it's going to be live for 2 weeks. All the special edition stuff will be taken away. So you'll just have the bare bones, books that are available. So if there's anything you see on there that you like, please back it now before it is gone. And also check out that super sweet action figure that he said there's only 7 of left. Those are really cool, guys. I'm really loving it. I think I'm going to have to make one for book 2. So everyone, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for watching. And for those of you that watch this back, thank you very much for coming back and watching the stream. Please share these projects. Please back these projects. It means the world to these creators. Let's make them happen. So everyone, have a great night. And as always, it's Russ Explode Studios with projects that'll blow your mind. You guys have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see you back on Tuesday.